Hello friends, I am Nisha Sharma, Associate Professor, Government College Khetri, Department of English. The topic under discussion today is a critical appreciation of Matthew Arnold's poem, Dover Beach. Literature is an expression of the personality of the writer, and that personality itself is formed and molded by the time in which he lives. A literary man is as much product of his society as his art is his own reaction to life. No writer can escape the influence of his age. Every man is the citizen of his age as well as his country. Thus, literature always expresses the thoughts and sentiments of human mind which are closely connected and conditioned by the age. It is more so in the case of a writer so sensitive as Arnold was. He belonged to the later Victorian era when Victorianism was already being questioned and yielding place to modernism. This spirit of questioning, this intellectual unrest, loss of faith in religion, rise of pessimism is everywhere reflected in Matthew Arnold's poem Dover Beach. Victorian poet Matthew Arnold's most famous poem, Dover Beach, is a dramatic monologue where the poet expresses his frustration and hopelessness of the modern chaotic world. He also expresses his view that this kind of situation where there is neither joy nor love nor light nor certitude nor peace nor help for pain has been created by the decline of faith, religious faith to be precise. The poem begins with a straightforward description of nature and the speaker calling his beloved. Maybe she is his beloved Margaret or his wife or some other imagined person, to see the beautiful sea and to hear the sound of the waves. The setting is inside a room, maybe a hotel, on looking outside their window at the on the coast of the English Channel near the English town Dover. The speaker and his beloved are looking outside their window at the French coast across the sea. So, at the beginning, it would seem to be a love poem or even a sonnet, as the first stanza consists of 14 lines like a sonnet, with a change of tone at the ninth line, as it should be the case for a sonnet. But obviously, the rhyme scheme does not comply. Land meets sea. The beach is an ideal setting for Arnold's poem. The land is a symbol of continuity and the sea is a symbol of change. The waves of the sea are constantly drawing the pebbles and sand back, then flinging them forward, begin and cease and then again begin. The sea, as a symbol of religious faith, was once full, but now I only hear its melancholy, long, withdrawing roar. Meanwhile, the land remains constant and the cliffs of England stand glimmering and vast. The narrator feels that misery and sadness await where they meet, a lament for the things that are lost. Dover Beach was first published in 1867. It describes a distinct clash between religion and the modern world. It also illustrates how the beauty of the world is corroded with the loss of faith. Dover Beach is a criticism on the world. The poem presents two things: the reality of the new world and loss of faith. The poet argues that the world is no more beautiful as it used to be. At first, standing on the cliffs of Dover Beach, he records his feelings about the tranquil sea. He also calls his love to enjoy this majesty of nature, glimmering lighthouse, famous white cliffs of Dover, and the sound of waves hitting at the seashore. This enchanting scene reminds him of the Greek dramatic Sophocles and his tragic plays. He states that in the past people had faith in the past and the world was a good place. But now it has become hollow without any joy, happiness, and faith. Also, people are unable to differentiate between reality and illusion. So, faith is slipping away. The speaker thinks about the ancient Greek playwright Sophocles and imagines Sophocles hearing the same sadness in the Aegean Sea as the speaker hears now on the English coast. Sophocles, in the mind of the speaker, likens the sad sound of the waves to the general sorrow of humanity, which moves like the waves. The speaker then notices another thought that comes with the sound of the sea. Explaining this next thought, the speaker describes religious faith as a sea that was once full like the tide. At that time, it reached around the earth like a girdle. Now, though the speaker just hears that sea's sad retreat, as the sea of his faith becomes smaller, says the speaker, it disappears into the atmosphere and leaves the edges of the world naked. The speaker suddenly addresses the companion as love and states desperately that the two of them need to treat each other with honesty and authenticity. This is because the world, though it has a dreamlike quality of variety, beauty, and newness, doesn't actually offer joy, love, or clarity. Neither, claims the speaker, can it provide certainty, peace, or relief from pain. The speaker then compares their collective situation to standing on a flat and dark piece of land, which is caught up in the chaos of fighting. Here, battles between unknowing groups continue under the cover of darkness. Now, we come to the themes of Dover Beach. The first theme is loss of faith and certainty. Written during the Victorian era, Matthew Arnold's Dover Beach admits to and laments the loss of religious faith that came with advances in various fields at the time: evolutionary biology, geology, archaeology, and textual analysis of the Bible, to name a few. For the speaker, loss of faith equates to loss of certainty. The Dover Beach itself seems to embody this loss both in its sights and its sounds. At first, the poem offers no clues that its main subject is the loss of faith. Instead, it begins by describing the atmosphere in which the speaker stands. The descriptions of the sea and the sound of the pebbles on the beach are lyrically beautiful at first, but they mask the eternal note of sadness that is revealed at the end of stanza 1. This sudden intrusion of sadness hints at the speaker's sense of loss, which finds fuller expression later in the poem. Second is the loss of religious faith. Indeed, the speaker imagines the ancient Greek playwright Sophocles hearing the same sadness in the sea that the speaker hears now. That is, the speaker sees an analogy between the irrelevance of the classical Greek gods in the speaker's time with the coming irrelevance of the Christian God in the near future. That doesn't mean that religious faith will return, but more that something will come along to take its place. In this case, the dominance of science. The speaker's position on this loss of religious faith becomes clear in the third stanza. Faith once made the world full and bright, that is, it offered comfort and joy in its certainty. Its loss then represents melancholy. What's more, the sea of faith once touched the shores of the entire world, but is now withdrawing. The poem is essentially saying that this loss of faith is global, in turn suggesting the vast reach of scientific advancement at that time. In other words, the speaker believes that scientific advancement will bring only scientific, not spiritual certainty, and will lead to more doubt and questioning. Overall, then, the poem expresses a kind of resignation. The speaker fully admits the change that is in process. It is as inevitable as the waves rising and falling. Next theme is nature and alienation. Linked to the idea of a loss of faith is a shift in the way people relate to the natural environment. Beach questions humankind's relationship with nature. Instead of finding happiness or the sublime in the natural environment, the speaker finds a deep sense of sorrow. The cold indifference and vast power of the natural world make the speaker feel small and insignificant. Central to the poem is an implicit admission that mankind is merely one part of a larger system, the natural world. The speaker looks out on a scene that is, on the one hand, beautiful, but on the other, a powerful reminder of nature's indifference to humankind. The beach and sea are by far the most prominent figures in the poem. The scene makes the speaker feel small and creates a feeling that nature is almost antagonistic towards the trials of humankind. Next theme is love. With the retreat of religion causing a crisis of spiritual faith, the speaker turns to love as an answer for the loss of God. Perhaps the poem suggests love between two people can compensate for the loss of connection between God and mankind. It is generally agreed that Arnold wrote Dover Beach while on his honeymoon. Whether or not this is definitely true, the speaker is certainly not alone in the poem. The speaker's interactions with an off-pace lover demonstrate the possible restoration of a different kind of faith in love rather than in God. But the poem does not end on an optimistic note, casting doubt on the idea that love will save the day. Instead, the speaker anticipates confusion, struggle, and violence. Though love might not be able to defeat these, the speaker presents it as the only potential solution. Love then is definitely valued in the poem, and the reader in turn is asked to share in that value. But love shows up in only a few brief moments, leaving its meaning far from certain. The poem can't say for sure that love will be able to make life meaningful, and perhaps even suggest that it ultimately can't, but it is presented as the best option and worth trying. Now we'll discuss Dover Beach as a dramatic monologue. Now, what are the characteristics of a dramatic monologue? In a dramatic monologue, somebody is speaking. The whole poem is the character's speech. The character is in a dramatic setting. There is a particular audience, time, and place, and the reader must determine from hints in the poem. Now, the identity of the speaker, the identity of the audience, and the relationship between them, the setting and time, and the speaker's purpose. The whole poem is the speech of one unidentified male character addressed to an unidentified woman, presumably his beloved. There is no dramatic interaction between them in that the female listener is silent throughout the poem. Everything about the passive listener and the dramatic situation is revealed in the speech of the speaker. The time is night and the place is a room with a window overlooking Dover Beach in England. The speaker is a mature male with a philosophical temperament. He seems to be melancholic as he broods over the darkening prospects of the Victorian age. This poem is a critical reflection on the Victorian age and how it is being caught in the chaos of the clash between science and religion. The speaker identifies this universal tragedy of human existence as due to the loss of religious faith. The literal sea he invoked at the beginning of the poem becomes the sea of faith. In the past, it was in full tide, but now it is retreating, exposing the naked shingles of the world. The speaker invokes love as the only available means of a positive human existence. He finds the world lacking in truth and honesty by showing that the glittering reality of this world is in sharp contrast with its dark reality. Human situation is hopeless as this world lacks joy, love, light, certitude, peace, and mercy. The ultimate cause for this human misery is the clash between science and religion in the Victorian age. The last three lines of the poem pinpoint the dark situation of the Victorian age and its cause. The speaker offers a symbolic war scene full of confusion and bloodshed. The ignorant armies stand for science and religion as they clash in the wake of Darwinism. The clash resulted in doubt and uncertainty that dominated the intellectual atmosphere of the Victorian age. Hence, the age is represented as darkling plain and the armies clash by night, which is a clear reference to the Victorian age as a jungle where survival is for the fittest. Now we'll make an analysis of literary devices in Doverby. Literary devices play an important role in shaping a literary piece of work. The writer uses them to bring uniqueness and depth in the simple text. Matthew Arnold has used some literary devices to bring depth in this poem. The analysis of some of the literary devices used in this poem can be discussed in the manner. First is assonance. Assonance is the repetition of vowel sounds in the same line, such as the sound of E and O in hath really neither joy nor love nor light. White has also made use of alliteration, and alliteration is the repetition of consonant sounds in the same line, such as the sound of I in to lie before us, sound of L in to lie before us like a land of dreams. Enjambment. Enjambment is defined as a thought or verse that does not come to an end at a line break, instead moves over the next line. For example, the poet says, and we are here as on a darkling plain, swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight. There is allusion in the poem. Allusion is a belief and an indirect reference of a person, place, thing, or idea of a historical, cultural, political, or literary significance. This poem contains allusions as in the second stanza. For example, Sophocles refers to the great Greek playwright, and in the third stanza, Sea of Faith refers to the world of religions. Pathetic fallacy. It is a figure of speech in which objects are attributed to human emotions. For example, listen, you hear the grating roar of pebbles, which the waves draw back and fling, an eternal note of sadness. Human beings experience these feelings attributed to pebbles. Symbolism. Symbolism is using symbols to signify ideas and qualities, giving them symbolic meanings different from literal meaning. Similarly, Sea of Faith symbolizes faith in God, and tide leaving the shore is the symbol of lost faith. Simile. Simile is a figure of speech used to compare something with something else to make the readers understand what it is. For example, the world is compared to the land of dreams and the lines to one another for the world which seems to lie before us like a land of dream. Imagery. Imagery is used to make readers perceive things involving their five senses, such as the tide is full, the moon lies fair, of pebbles which the waves draw back and fling, and where the sea meets the moon blanched land. Thus, the analysis show that this poem, though seems a simple description of the natural beauty, has a deceptive pull to spellbound the reader. Thank you.